Hi, and welcome to Code Corner. This is a video series we do at Mayfield Renewables to talk about codes and standards as they relate to the solar and solar plus storage industries. Today, I'm going to get in and talk about the 2024 International Fire Code, or IFC, and this focus on this series is going to be on the storage systems, and so specifically around the battery systems. So this is section 1207 of the IFC. For those of you familiar using the IFC for PV systems, there's a chapter there as well, but this one today we're going to focus in on that storage systems in 1207. As with a lot of codes, when I start talking about them, I do like to kind of look at the scope first and just understand the intention of the code, who it is we're trying to serve, what it is that we're trying to protect. And the IFC, just like all the other codes and standards, has this scope. And so I encourage you to take a look at that as well to help kind of put it into perspective in terms of the people that we're trying to protect in this case, or the hazards that we're trying to mitigate against. And so in the IFC, they have a number of items here in the scope, and so you can see we're talking about the hazard from fire and explosion, so that's definitely something that we are trying to mitigate against. And it talks about the handling or use of structures, materials, or devices, so our energy storage system's going to fall squarely into that. There's also talking about the hazards for life, property, and the public welfare. So the occupants of the building, or the scope of this is we're trying to protect for those folks, I should say. And then fire hazards in the structure, and then matters as they relate to the construction of the fire protection systems. And so this gets into more about the fire sprinklers and things like that. Our energy storage systems do have a section around that for within the IFC. So this is definitely comes into play for the fire protection systems. And then, not surprisingly, we are talking about, we're trying to make sure that we have conditions that affect the safety of firefighters and emergency responders. So thinking about those folks that are coming in, fighting fires, or having to, come in and try and do rescue operations. And so when we take a step back and think about, what is this code trying to accomplish? This is where I always like to send people, take a look at the scope, understand that, and, think about who it is that we're trying to serve in this case. When it comes to our energy storage system specifically, again, it's 1207 is the section that you're going to go take a look at. And I'm showing you here all of the subsections of the outline of section 1207. And so not necessarily going to read through all of these for you, but you can see it breaks down the different aspects of energy storage systems, and we get into, you see right there the commissioning, decommissioning, O&M, all the way through, and it breaks it down into different types of installations, the protection of our energy storage systems, and then you see there at the very end, there's ESS in group R3 and R4 occupancies, so residential applications. So the way IFC approaches this is the first chapters really are around commercial, non-residential type applications. There are, and it will point to it within even the general section, it points you directly to 1207.11 if you're installing in R3 and R4 occupancies. So we do have a differentiation typically between the commercial world and the residential world and what those requirements are. So depending on where you're installing, if you are looking at doing installations in residential or commercial, will help kind of point out where you need to be within the code. So I'm going to focus in today just really on this general section and kind of help set the tone for it. And then in future code corners, we're going to jump into some of these other sections. And so I'll point out, when we're talking about commercial versus residential applications. When it comes to the general application, first off, 1207.1, just kind of help you get an understanding of how the IFC is laid out and kind of how they do these subsections. So 1207.1, you saw in that previous slide, and right here, that is the general requirements. And then you can see even within that, we have subsections beyond that. So really you're going to go through, and this is where you're going to start and understand. There's a lot of references in future sections back to this. So understanding those general requirements is important. And so you can see there that we have a number of different subsections. Some of the big ones that we're going to talk about or that get a lot of attention: the large-scale fire test, hazard mitigation analysis, construction documents, all of those things. So when you are trying to figure out, how do I apply for that, or how do I apply this code to my installations, starting off at the general section and then being able to navigate from there is important. And then when it comes to the application of the code, this is where I wanted to just take a second and show you this table. So this is in the general section. You can see 1207 1.3. And when you go and you read the text associated with this, it talks about the established the thresholds that you need to have in order for the IFC to apply. So when you look at this table, what you'll notice is that there's, down the left-hand side, there's different types of energy storage. So this is not just batteries, this is, but it gets into different types of batteries as well. So it kind of breaks it down a little bit more granular. But what you do see is so the left-hand side, it's kind of the technology. And then on the right-hand side, you'll see the energy capacity. And so you'll see various kilowatt-hour values. What this is telling us is for the International Fire Code to apply for your installation, you have to have a minimum of this amount of energy storage in your system. So the majority of energy storage systems for our solar plus storage systems is lithium ion. So you go down to that fourth line, lithium ion batteries, move over to the right, 20 kilowatt hours. So for the IFC to apply, you have to have a minimum of 20 kilowatt hours of storage, and then the rest of the 1207 would apply. For residential, I don't have it here, but I'll just verbally talk to you about it. But in residential, you go to that 1207.11 section, and it will immediately amend this, and it'll say it's a single kilowatt hour. So if you have a energy storage system that is 1 kilowatt hour or more in a residential application, the IFC will apply. So greatly reducing what that is, essentially making it so pretty much any energy storage system that we are going to install of consequence is going to be applied to, or the IFC would apply to that. So this table is helpful if you're doing other technologies. You see NiCad batteries are listed, lead acid batteries are listed. So depending on that exact type of technology you're using, there will be an associated energy capacity value. So that wraps up kind of that introduction to 1207. Again, in future Code Corners, we're going to dive into some more specific sections and get into those. So take a look at our site for those. And in addition, we have courses specifically around solar and solar plus storage applications. So I encourage you to take a look at our website and see if there's some longer courses that you might be interested in taking and helping kind of further your education in the industry as well. And then finally, if you have questions or comments, here's our contact info. Love to hear from folks. Would love to hear if you have questions on this topic or specifically or others, or if you have ideas for other Code Corners or other topics that you'd like to hear a little bit more information about. Feel free to send us a message and let us know what we can do. So thanks a lot, and I'll see you in the next Code Corner.